ברוכים הבאים, ברוכים החוזרים. We are doing Sefer Shmuel, Book of Samuel 1, Samuel 1, chapter 12. Okay? We're having a bit of a interesting Passover between Passover, interesting switch between two different time periods. Historically, sometimes people don't always know when they're usually, in fact, we don't know when we're in very significant historic times. The big changes happen around us, and looking back, we can say, oh, we lived through that really amazing time. And sometimes we know. Shmuel Hanavi is the end, is really kind of finishing, he's the end of the book of Judges, okay? The period of the Judges is coming to an end. It's a period of anarchy, period where we don't have the common pasuk, the way the pasuk mentions it, En melech b'Yisrael, there's no king in Israel. Ha'isha yashar be'einav ya'aseh. Everyone does kind of what they want. That sounds, on the one hand, kind of ominous. Anarchy, everyone does whatever they want, but it kind of also sounds cool. There's no king, you can do what you want, and it's more like libertarian. Shmuel really belongs to that period. He really likes the judges, but he identifies with that, and he's very suspicious of centralized power. And ironically, the person who's most suspicious of centralized power is the one to generate the first two kings of Israel and Yehuda. So Shmuel here is giving over. He's not really giving over power because he never had political power, but he's kind of ending his whole time period, his whole time, his place in history. He's going to cement it is in this chapter, and as we're going to see, and we're starting a whole new period with new challenges for the future, and it's somehow going to be better than we had in the past. But never, as we find in Tanach, it could be better, but it's never great, and it's definitely never perfect. Tanakh is not a story of our successes, of our glory, and of our greatness. It's a story of our failures. It's a story of how we met challenges, not perfectly, and that's what we focus on. Not really focused on how great everything was. So get ready. What? Very little. It seems like the author of Tanakh wasn't trying to glorify the Jewish nation and their history. It was trying to give you a dark vision of how things were and kind of warn you of the future. So you'll often find a lot of focus on some really dramatic, terrible time period, and then you'll say, oh, and then they had like 40 good years. And then again, some terrible tragedy, and you had great 20 years. But the great 20 years is not, you're not going to have story of heroics. We don't have great stories of these heroes. And when we do, our heroes are always shown, on the one hand, to be heroic, but on the other hand, to be kind of weak in other areas or clownish in others, right? And we're going to see the same thing with this heroic figure of Saul in the upcoming chapters. That's a little bit of background of what we're doing. And let's begin to read chapter 12.
The Tanakh wasn't meant to be a book on history. It's not our historical records. It's an educational book, basically. So what it emphasizes most is our mistakes that we can learn from them.
Yeah. A lot of ancient epics kind of focus on how great, the heroics. This is not what the Tanakh does. It's a different strategy, different energy. So stay buckle your seatbelt.
It's the best way to learn from mistakes.
Correct. It's the best way to learn, and it takes a level of humility and to be able to look at yourselves honestly and openly. Where's that guy who used to read?
Yeah, he's done.
He's done?
Nothing is coming.
He graduated?
Pretty much, yeah.
You should have told us. We would have had a.
Yeah, well, what about a party?
He just has his tevilah. I mean, he's done.
His tevilah? Does Priyo have like a hazing ceremony for someone?
We should.
He wants to prepare bar mitzvah.
Where is he going to read in Knesset?
Something on the phone.
Yeah, want to do that? You want to do like a farm Shabbat?
We need to spray them with like.
Speak to the rabbi. Let's do a farm Shabbat, all of us. Let's do that.
Let's do a farm Shabbat, also everybody's bar mitzvah.
And we'll do a bar mitzvah as well. Great. Let's do it. What is a farm Shabbat?
Hola,
On a farm.
¿cómo estamos? Buenos días, ¿cómo andas?
Are
Ya te paraste, por lo menos.
the Shomea? Hello?
Un poquito.
In the barn?
I think we
Algo
asked
raro.
him. I don't think he's talking to us. Ricardo, you need to mute yourself. Unless you want to say something to us. Regardless, so yeah, Shabbat we do a farm. We should plan that. All right, let's start. Let's read Shmuel.
ויאמר שמואל אל כל ישראל, הנה שמעתי בקולכם לכל אשר אמרתם לי, ואמליך עליכם את מלך.
So he's being very clear that he didn't want to do this. I don't want to appoint a king. I did what you asked, that I'm giving you a king because you asked for it. Not my idea. I don't take any responsibility for this. He's distancing himself from this thing that he did. Okay, so the irony is he's a very reluctant messenger of or a harbinger of this great new period, right? So that's how he starts. Go on.
ועתה הנה המלך מתהלך לפניכם, ואני זקנתי ושרתי, ובניי כנעריתכם, ואני התהלכתי לפניכם מנעוריי עד היום הזה.
So over here also you can kind of sense the sadness. I'm getting old. I've been with you since I was a child. And now you have this new king you wanted. He's walking before you.
הנני ענובי נגד אדוני ונגד משיחו את שור מי לקחתי וחמור מי לקחתי ואת מי עשקתי את מי רסותי ומיד מי לקחתי חופר ועני בעיני בו ואשיב לכם.
So the most important thing for him to establish here, he wants everyone to accept and to admit that he is clean, that he never took anything, he never took any bribes. Not only he never took any bribes, that he was completely clean and free from any financial obligations or financial connections, but not just, we use the word financial, but it's over here, it's much deeper. He doesn't have any, he doesn't owe anybody anything. He never got any sort of value for the spiritual labor that he put in. This is very important for the period of the prophets, because all the kosher prophets, as opposed to the evil prophets, they had this attribute to them that they refused to take anything for their service. And you notice that this is something that breaks from how the whole world works. The whole world around us, the world I'm sure many of you come from, and in many ways the world that you're joining now, the Jews as well, today, you have a professional clergy, okay? And the clergy they live off their spiritual service that they provide, which seems like a reasonable thing. You know, you provide goods and services, you get paid for it, and so on. The prophets were not into that. Chazal didn't believe in that. All the first rabbis, first people to use the term rabbi. I think the first rabbi in history was one of the early Tanaim. I'm trying to think it'll be Elazar, maybe. Before that, they didn't use the term rabbi. It meant like master or teacher in Persian. They all had professions. They could not get paid for the service of being a rabbi, of transferring Torah to the next generation. And that was considered a fundamental attribute. It was like you couldn't teach Torah, like part of the rules of teaching Torah. You couldn't teach Torah if you got paid for it. And it started changing in Bavel. In the time of the Talmud, it started changing a little bit in the sense that there were cases of rabbis who were like security guards in fields, and wealthier people needed their judgment for financial disputes that they had. was worth much more than their salaries. So the rabbis refused to do it because they were busy at work. And then they developed this thing called sachar batala. You get paid for not working. So they would put someone to do their job for them and pay them what they were otherwise getting paid. And that was considered okay. And then from there, it was a slippery slope where it became more accepted for rabbis to get a salary. And Rambam was the last rabbi who fought against this and considered this to be illegal, inappropriate, and in some ways disqualifying, because he felt that we should be in the prophetic tradition of teaching Torah for free. But then Rambam's opponents believed that if you did this, they didn't disagree with him that was the rule, but they felt if we continued following this rule, then the Torah would kind of fall apart because no one would be teaching it, and they employed this term that they call et la'asot la'Hashem heferu toratecha, which means sometimes you need to violate the Torah in order to uphold the Torah. That's so they kind of admit that Rambam was right, but they still felt that if they didn't do it, there would be no Torah. So the reason I'm just bringing all this up is that Shmuel here is trying to hold on to this value and remind them that this is what a prophet does. Prophet doesn't get anything. Now you're going to have a king. The king is going to tax you. The king is going to live off you. I don't to delineate that. And then the future prophets throughout the book of 1 second of Shmuel and the other prophets, we're going to see that same theme. They all do it for free. Yes, Ricardo. Hello. You want to? Okay, guys who are online, if you have questions, put it in the chat. Oh wait, no one hears me. Do you guys hear me?
Yes, I can. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay,
question.
fine.
Thank
Good.
you.
If you have questions, put it in the chat, because otherwise I don't always hear you well and it distracts me. I'll keep an eye on the chat. All right. So here Shmuel is affirming and reaffirming, I didn't take anything, I don't owe anything anyone, I wasn't corrupt in any way. And if you remember at the beginning, Shaul, when he's looking for the prophet, he feels embarrassed because he doesn't have any money to give him. He thinks he needs to give the prophet a gift. Remember when we learned that? You guys remember that? And what happened when he comes to Shmuel? Shmuel didn't ask for anything. He didn't give anything. The contrary, Shmuel invites him to eat with him. So you see the model of spirituality, the nivu'ah, the nebiism of the Hebrews is a completely different model than spirituality all over the world. And it's like a sharp break again from, for example, Egyptian spirituality that we came from. We came out of Egypt, right? What do we know about Egypt? That their priestly class was part of nobility. They had lands. Our Kohanim do not have land. They get only tithes, right? They're part of the government class. They're part of keeping people down. So this is a completely different model, and Shmuel is juxtaposing himself and the new king that is being anointed / appointed. All right, go on.
ויאמרו לא עשקתנו ולא הורסתנו ולא לקחת מיד איש מאומה. ויאמר עליהם עד אדוני בכם ועת משיחו היום הזה כי לא מסרתם בידי מאומה ויאמר עד.
So they all approve, they all agree, yes, you didn't take anything from us, you have nothing of ours, and you were altruistic throughout your career. And notice that he wants this to be witnessed in front of God and in front of the Messiah. Who's the Messiah? So all the Messiah means in Tanach is someone who is anointed for the purpose of being the ruler. It's a technical term. I know that when we use the term Messiah, it carries with it this mythical, magical connotations. Not just for people from non-Jewish backgrounds, but even us Jews, we think of like the Mashiach. There's a savior, but in Shmuel's language, the Messiah is just that guy that got anointed, and now he has a job, and he may or may not succeed. All right, so that's the Messiah for now. ויאמר שמואל אל העם, go on.
יאמר שמואל אל העם, אדוני אשר עשה את משה ואת אהרון, ואשר העלה את אבותיכם מארץ מצרים.
So we're gonna in the upcoming psukim, there's going to be a few questions that I'm not sure that I have the answers for. A few questions about the story, but mostly questions about the language employed. Okay, so let's see. The first question is, what is it when the pasuk says? This is a little bit out of ordinary. It's strange that the pasuk would say, Hashem asher asa et Moshe ve'et Aaron. What does it mean that he made Moshe and Aaron and took them out of Egypt? He appointed, he sent them. Just remember, this is a question that we're going to need to address. All right, it says made Moshe and Aaron. Next.
ועתה התייסבו וישפטה איתכם לפני אדוני את כל צדקות אדוני אשר עשה איתכם ואת אבותיכם.
So over here also, there's a very interesting use of the word shofet, judge. You guys gather around, and I'm going to be shofet you. I'm going to judge you for all the things that God, or all the justices that God gave you, right? Gave us and your parents. Now, the reason that's interesting is because we just finished, those of us who've read the book of Judges, and then you had these people, they went and they judged Israel for 50 years. So what is a judge? What does it mean? So we think of judges as settling disputes, right? That's the job of a judge. So he's a judicial figure. But we're going to see from here and in other places, the job of the judge or the prophet is not just, maybe not at all even, to be judicial. That's a side point. He is judging you before God. He is reminding you your duty to God and your failings. His job is to basically be this negative, judging, and then what we consider negative, we don't judge me. Yes, he's here to judge you. He's here to tell you, like, God was kind, God gave you all these opportunities, and you blew it here, and you messed up here, and you messed your opportunity here. And he says, gather around now before I die, and I'm going to give it to you guys. I'm going to give you musar. I'm going to judge you. All right. So that's the energy of the judges. They're like that. By the way, who's like this? Moshe Rabbeinu was like this, right? Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't this loving, kind, grandfatherly, everyone's great and God loves you and you guys are going to succeed whatever you do. There's a little bit of that, but mostly it's him telling us how we failed. Because this is what we should be looking for in life when we study Torah. We should be looking for our failings and looking how to improve, okay? And if you're looking, to feel good about yourself and to get encouraged, I don't know, go to different rabbi. Right? Yeah. That's Shmuel Hanavi.
This comes with not accepting presents and payments.
This what?
This comes with not accepting
Yes.
presents and payments.
Yeah, exactly. Only someone, good point. Only someone who's completely free and clean from benefit from the people or having any sort of doesn't owe anyone anything. Only he can truly stand before you and give you musar. Yeah, go on.
Right?
Yeah.
אשר בא יעקב מצרים, ויזעקו אבותיכם אל אדוני, וישלח אדוני את משה ואת אהרון, ויוציאו את אבותיכם ממצרים, וישבו במקום הזה.
So he talks about Jacob as an individual, right? He comes to Egypt, and then we went into slavery, and God sends Moshe and Aaron. In other words, he doesn't give them any credit for the exodus of Egypt because they don't deserve that credit. They didn't do it themselves. They were taken out of Egypt as a gift. So here you were gifted the exodus of Egypt, and then וישכחו
וישכחו את אדוני אלוהיהם, וימכור אותם ביד סיסרא, שר צבא חסור, וביד פלישתים, וביד מלך מואב, וילחמוהו בם.
The next one.
ויזעקו אל אדוני ויאמרו חטאנו כי עזבנו את אדוני ונעבוד את הבעלים ואת השטרות ועתה אשימנו מיד אויבינו ונעבדך.
So he mentions that we forgot God without describing what it means to forget God, yet in Pasuk Tet, in verse 9. And then we were sold into the hands of Sisra and the Philistines and the Moabites, and we couldn't handle those wars. And when we lost and we were oppressed, that's when we cried out to God that we've sinned and we want to repent. All right. And then he mentions how it is that we abandoned or betrayed God, and that is by worshiping the Baalim, then the Ashtoreth, and Baalim is the Baal idol, and Ashtoreth is this tree worship. Okay, and they represent different types of idol worship. The Baal is this monstrous figure that you make with your hands. So he's more technological, right? So it's when you worship this demonic force, right? And Ashtoreth, it's this feminine god, Ashtoreth, and it's associated with fertility and trees as a nature god. And humans in general or nature goddess, have tendencies to either worship this things that we've built with our hands, this technology, or to worship nature. And we still do that today. There's still nature worship in different forms, right? You'll see a lot in the environmental movement, notwithstanding the arguments which might be legitimate about humans being having an effect on the environment, but you'll notice their language oftentimes would be that if we harm the environment, then Mother Nature will be angry, and then will destroy us. There'll be a flood. They see that the cause and effect is still that same ancient, angry, feminine, naturalist God that gets angry that we take from nature without giving back to them. And it's better we don't take from nature and we just like live as part of nature. It's a very ancient pagan human drive, and that's the difference in Baal and Ashtoreth. And now they realize that this is all bad, and they go, oh no, we're sorry, we'll worship only God now. Yeah.
But this idolatry is totally different than even the golden calf, right? Because these
Yeah.
are real like idols, whereas the golden calf was like the Israelites sort of struggling to
It's symbolic.
because they were struggling.
These also could be symbolic. So idolatry, it's a mistake to consider idolatry a anachronistic, ancient form of idol worship which existed once, and today we're studying it as archaeologists studies. Oh, once they believed in idols. No. Idolatry, since the whole Tanach is full of the struggle against idolatry, there's still idolatry today, it just has a more advanced form. So idolatry could be worshiping a human being, right? It could be, saying that Jesus is the way, and like he's the Son of God, and he's the only way to get to God is through the Son. So we take a thing that's not God, a symbol, a person, an idea, and we worship it. That could be idolatry, and that is idolatry, right? But it's like a modern, more genteel, more refined version of idolatry. And another and by the way, I'm talking about idolatry as an idea. There's a whole book called Hilchot Avodah Zarah where you can see legally what's technically Avodah Zarah or not. And some of these are technically Avodah Zarah, some are not. I'm not getting into that. But another form of idolatry could be worshiping nature today. So people who look at nature as something that has its own power, and something that we must serve, not something that we must dominate and preserve. So like the Garden of Eden was given to us to guard and to keep, but it wasn't given to us as this mother god of the garden, like the snakes in that garden. Like only God is God. The garden itself, nature itself is not, and this is something that because nature is amazing, and because we can get hypnotized by the beauty of it, how simple it is, and how also complex it is, that that type of idolatry is always waiting, it's always sucking people in. And that's like what Ashtoreth kind of symbolizes. But and they realize, okay, we messed up, we went in this way, and now we're willing to return to God. Yeah.
Because the Jewish people are outside of the laws of the nature.
Because we're outside of two things, rather. We're outside of Mazal, right?
Exactly,
We're
yes.
out, but by saying outside of Mazal, some people take that to mean Mazal as in the zodiac, right? We're outside the signs.
And the influence of, yes.
Yeah, so some people take that to mean there is strong influence of the stars, but
Yes.
Jews are so strong we're out of it. The way we understand it here, Sami and myself, Shmuel and myself, is that Jews don't believe in that. We're outside of it in the sense that we don't accept that the stars have power. We think only God has power.
Because
Right. We don't accept that nature has its own power. We think nature is completely passive, and it's up to us to appreciate it as a creation of God, and like the Garden of Eden, watch over it and preserve it, but not to idealize it and mythologize it. Right? It's an important distinction, and people can fall into believing that there's powers in the stars and there's powers in nature. That's things that we should not be believing. But because that would be a more modern version of idolatry. All right, go on.
וישלח אדוני את ירובעל ואת בדן ואת יפתח ואת שמואל ויסר אתכם מיד אויביכם מסביב ותשבו בטח.
So we all know who is Yerubaal. Who's Yerubaal? Gideon. So you do know, not we all. You know, not everyone knows. So the truth is that the rabbis assumed that Yerubaal is Gideon. Why? Because I forget the reason why. There was some derasha that they said why it was Gideon, but it's a name that we didn't have before. And then you have Bedan, another name we didn't have before. So who is Bedan? If you know Yerubaal, you know who knows who's Bedan? Okay, which shofet is from this tribe of Dan?
Oh, Shimshon?
Yes, Shimshon.
Huh?
They say that Shimshon, the Chazal say, the Gemara says that Yerubaal is Gidon and Shimshon is Bedan. The problem with that is that it's not in the right order. Who was first, Gidon or Shimshon? Gidon was first? Who was first? And then you have Yiftach. Who was first, Yiftach or?
It's the one that took the vow and
Yeah.
had to kill the daughter.
Yeah.
Blah. Okay, so Gidon is.
Gidon was before Shimshon.
Gidon is Shoftim Shesh.
Yeah. And then where was Yiftach?
Must be later.
No, Yiftach was earlier. I believe so. So Bedan shows the reason Bedan was called. They assume Bedan is Shimshon is because he's from Dan, like from Dan. Then there's Yiftach and Shemuel. He speaks about himself in third person. Again, he's kind of understanding where he is in history as the last of the great Shoftim. Yiftach is 11. He's the last. Is he after? And where is Shimshon?
I'm looking.
And the pasuk goes on to say that these were the great prophets, the great not prophets, the great judges that helped you, and that's when you were completely.
Shimshon is after Yiftach.
Is after Yiftach, right?
Exactly.
So the order, if we're going to go with Chazal, the order here isn't great. There are opinions that think that these are just judges that were not mentioned in the book of Judges for whatever reason. Again, I don't know the answer to this particular mystery. I just know that Bedan shows up in Divrei Hayamim as another figure. So, and it seems to be someone else. I'm not sure who Yerubaal is, right? So that's another problem with chapter 12 is that we have these figures that we didn't come across before. I don't have solutions that satisfy me yet regarding these, but regardless, he's giving us a historical background of the great judges, including himself, and bringing us to the period of kings.
But on the end of Shofetim 8, when he said that he died, then it refers like to the house of Yerubaal Gidon together.
So it seems like Yerubaal would be someone else.
It's in the same guy.
You think it's Yerubaal is Gidon from the Psukim?
It's for, yeah. Opposite. 1, 2. Yeah, because it's like after his death, it tells about his children, but it does not.
But Yerubaal seems to be a parallel family, right?
It's, I don't know, it seems like it's giving another name
Another name for him.
for him after he died.
That's what the Talmud believes.
9-2.
Yeah.
9-2, 9-3.
Oh, well, I'll have to look at that.
Okay.
Then Pasuk Yud Bet, V'tir'u,
ותראו כי נחש מלך בני עמון בא עליכם ותאמרו לי לא כי מלך ימלוך עלינו ואדוני אלוהיכם מלככם.
So this actually proves what we saw earlier, that Nahash and Ammon was a challenge even before Shaul. And this is kind of what got the challenge of Nahash b'nei Ammon and how cruel and terrifying he was. That's what made them request a king, demand a king.
ועתה הנה המלך אשר בחרתם אשר שאלתם והנה נתן אדוני עליכם מלך.
Again, what do we see? The reluctance he has to appoint a king, how he's still unhappy with it. He never got over the fact that they asked for a king. He doesn't understand why they need it. He doesn't like it.
אם תראו את אדוני ועבדתם אותו ושמעתם בקולו ולא תמרו את פי אדוני וייתם דמתם וגם המלך אשר מלך עליכם אחר אדוני אלוהיכם.
Over here also you can see hints of Shmuel's political philosophy, right? He doesn't see the melech as any different than the people, right? And you see similar in Dvarim also when we saw the mitzvah to appoint a king. So if you want a king like all the goyim, you can have one, but he can't have too many wives, he can't have too much money, he can't have too many horses. He should always remember that God is above him and that he's just like his brothers. The term brothers shows up 4 or 5 times in the parasha, that bilti rum levavo, his heart, he shouldn't feel that he's above anyone else. Here too, you and the king should all follow God. You're all equal under God. The king isn't the king by the right of the gods, right? He's not the king because God appointed him. Yes, God allowed you to have a king, but you all have the same obligations.
It's also like they were looking for a king to kind of like absolve themselves of the responsibility, so let the king be responsible. And Shmuel is telling them, if you don't follow the Torah, the king is not going to follow the Torah, right? The king is one of you.
Yeah, and if you all don't follow the Torah, having a king won't help, which is a kind of a tragic yet magical part of our story, is that we don't have the ability, it seems, to live on our own, like on the sword. Like as soon as we rebel against God, we lose. And so if you guys don't follow God, then you're gonna fall. You won't be able to survive. You won't be able to succeed. It's this consistent theme we have.
It also, we want a Mashiach to come, right? It says the Mashiach is not he's going to be like a product of our society.
Yeah.
If our society isn't a messianic society, there's going to be any Mashiach.
Yeah. If we're not worthy of doing the thing that the Mashiach is supposed to do, then it won't happen. He's not going to do it for us. Exactly. He's not a magical savior. Shmuel doesn't believe, and the Tanakh doesn't believe in individual charismatic people that come and save everyone with their power. Like the power is in the people, and the king is an expression, the leader, whoever, the anointed one is an expression of what the people are capable of and what they're made of.
Rav, can I make a
Yes,
question?
sure.
Hi. Or now that you mentioned the Nahash and all that, it made me think, is it worth it to enter into this kind of discussions with what we may consider people that are that fall into idolatry, like you were just explaining a few minutes ago, the modern idolatry? May it be that they believe in the universe and all this nonsense, sorry, and or that they are just plainly Catholics or Christians or whatever. Thinking about the Nahash also, you know that my understanding is that we should like not even pay attention and ignore and just walk away. But how much is it worth it to enter into this kind of discussions? Kind of like, especially when, well, in my case right now, I'm in an environment where that's what's all around me, and people usually, because they know that I have, you know, this connection, they usually come to me and ask questions and what's the Torah? Is it the Old Testament? Blah blah blah. And I am usually very, I don't know what to do. Like, should I engage or not engage? Basically, like pick that fight or not.
So it's hard for me to answer because I don't know like the people you're talking about personally. But what I could say is that you got to use judgment. If you have a person who sincerely wants your opinion and he wants the truth, and you feel that he's open to hearing an opinion and he's not completely closed in his own ways, then it would be cruel to not share the truth with him because it's
Thank
the
you.
truth. But if you feel that the person and you learn as you go along. So I sometimes make this mistake too, or I start speaking to someone, could even be a family member, and I think that we can have a dialogue, but I realize that these people are completely locked in their ways. They're never going to consider another point of view, and in fact, by talking to them, we're just going to harm them and insult them or make them insecure, and then because they're
Yeah.
insecure, they'll mistreat you and so on. So if you have to kind of use your judgment with who you're speaking to, what you're
Right.
describing, it sounds like you're speaking to like open-minded, intelligent individuals that want to hear the truth. In which case, you can be like Abraham Avinu and share it with them.
Right, right. That's okay. Thank you. That helps. That helps a lot because sometimes it's all the contrary. They have an agenda to actually want to convert me, or something like that,
So
or bring.
if that's what they want to do, then be polite and like kind of change the subject and say, listen, I don't know
Right.
about this so much. I don't know. Like it's better to play dumb than to get into to waste a half a day arguing with someone who
Yeah.
will never hear anything you say, and you already know everything he's going to tell you, but he's going to tell it to you again because he thinks that he can convert you. So
And
it's
locked
something
in
that
their ways. Like,
yeah, you're gonna have you're going to develop the judgment to pick your fights and battles, and don't waste your time. Time is precious. There's so much to learn. There's so much to do. So don't waste time with people who are never gonna have a dialogue with you.
תודה רבה לך.
So let's what?
There's a question. In this verse, it says Hashem Elohim. Right?
Where in Yedalit? Gimel?
This one. Hashem Elohim, right?
Yeah.
And Elohim could be your judge also, right? So if that is the case.
When we say Adonai Elohim, it means your God.
But your judge also, no? Because Elohim is
Elohim could mean judge. It does sometimes mean judge. Interchangeable words, synonymous. Synonym? Yeah. But in this case, it's not what it means. In this case, it means because whenever we say Adonai Elohim, we mean the Yod He and Vav He, your God, the name your God. That's what it means here. Bechavod.
ואם לא תשמעו בקול אדוני ובריתם את פי אדוני ויטע יד אדוני בכם ובאבותיכם.
This is also a pasuk which is on the one hand very common for a Navi to say, if you don't follow the way of God, his hand will be like in you and usually it's your children, but in this case it's your parents, your ancestors. I don't know. Why it says this way? Maybe my only suggestion here is that he just he's telling them to look at their past because they're coming from a very difficult time of the judgment. They were always losing and they were always kind of being punished, and that's their recent memory. So he's saying that's going to continue happening to you if you continue to make those mistakes. Meaning not והייתה יד אדוני בכם ובאבותיכם, it's as if he's saying בכם כמו באבותיכם, כבאבותיכם, right? That's what I would assume. But grammatically, that doesn't fit. It's just the only way I can explain it. Go on.
גם עתה התייסבו וראו את הדבר הגדול הזה, אשר אדוני עושה לעיניכם.
And now I'm going to show you guys a sign, a great thing that's going to happen. This is symbolic of everything I'm telling you now. בכבוד.
הלא כסיר חיטים היום אקרא אל אדוני ויתן קולות ומטר ודעו וראו כי רעתכם רבה אשר עשיתם בעיני אדוני לשאול לכם מלך.
So when is Ketzir Chitim? When is the time that we cut wheat? Who knows? When's the right time to harvest wheat? Yeah, well, Shavuot time, pretty much now. If you look outside now, well, where do you guys live? In Jerusalem, you don't see, but where I live, if you look outside, the fields are all tall. Now, this year isn't the best year for this because we have a weird late winter and rain, which messes up it's considered by our tradition to be siman klala if you get late rains. And the reason it's siman klala, meaning a bad sign, it's because our agriculture is developed for long, hot, dry summers and wet, rainy, cloudy, miserable winters. And so then we develop fruits and vegetables that are designed for this kind of thing. So if you have vineyards and you get a summer rain, it's going to ruin your vineyard. It's going to ruin the wine. You need a dry summer for that. Same with figs. Same with the 7 minim of Eretz Yisrael. They kind of evolved for Eretz Yisrael type weather. If Eretz Yisrael weather flips, we don't have the peaches and apples and raspberries that maybe you have in Europe where you have summer rains. So it ruins it. So he's saying now you're going to see, even though it's Ksir Chitim, so it's the same time we're having now, you're going to see a rain, and that's symbolic of not just of like the fact that you guys have sinned before God, and right now you're still in a state of sin, a state that you need to repent from all this, but also it's also symbolic of a good thing happening at the wrong time. Sometimes you have an okay thing, but it's the wrong place in the wrong time. What does that remind you of in our context? The melech. Asking a melech is not in itself a bad thing, but it was a wrong place and the wrong time for them to ask it, because as we discussed in previous classes, they looked for a melech because they couldn't handle the responsibility of governing, of fighting wars, of administering their affairs. So they asked for a melech. Asking for a melech all the goyim is exactly what they are allowed to do, but they were doing it as a way of getting out of responsibility. So that's symbolic of that. And go on.
ויקרא שמואל אל אדוני ויתן אדוני קולות ומטר ביום ההוא וירא כל העם מאוד את אדוני ואת שמואל.
So Shmuel prays, there's thunder, there's lightning. They've never seen thunder and lightning in this season, and they're filled with terror.
יאמרו כל העם אל שמואל התפלל בעד עבדיך אל אדוני אלוהיך ואל נמות כי אספנו על כל חטאותינו רעה לשאול לנו מלך.
So at this point, the people break down. They heard this whole speech. Shmuel was never corrupt, never took money from them. They they're going through all their sins and the history of their ancestors' sins, and they feel, oh, we don't want a king anymore. We're sorry. From in addition to all the sins that we've committed against God, now asking for a king is it actually kind of sacrilegious. Can we don't want that anymore. They kind of realize that they made a mistake.
ויאמר שמואל הנה עמלתי ראו אתם עשיתם את כל הרעה הזאת אל תסורו מאחרי אדוני ועבדתם את אדוני בכל לבבכם.
So now Shmuel is calming them down after hyping them up and terrorizing them with this reign. He says, listen, we're not going to undo the melech. It's okay that you have a king now. Yes, it came from the wrong place. Yes, you guys are full of iniquity and sin and you deserve punishment. But if you serve God and you stay focused and you stay on the right path, you'll be okay. Don't fear. This is a symbolic. You guys can still come out on top.
The melech could be like a substitute for Baal or the Ashtoreth if you think of him as this like messianic figure.
Yeah.
However, if he's a melech as the Torah prescribes, and we keep the Torah and we keep the melech as his position that the Torah
As like an
prescribes,
administrative position, yeah.
exactly,
That's why
then-
you keep saying you
then
go
you
after
can-
God. Right. In other words, don't like here's a king, but don't get carried away. This is still God.
ולא תסורו כאחרי הטוב אשר לא יועילו ולא יסילו איתו המה.
I want to make a point in this pasuk. It's very common today in academic biblical scholarship to make a claim that in Dvarim and in Shmuel and in the prophets, they had this idea, I think they call it monolatry, where I don't know if monolatry is the right word, but it's the concept where you worship one out of many gods, but other gods exist, just don't worship them. So it's like an exclusive worship of the only God that you should be worshiping, but there are other powers, and they try to, and the argument that modern scholarship sometimes make is that the monotheistic idea of God being the only power in the universe is something that was developed later. This pasuk shows that Shmuel didn't agree. Shmuel isn't saying don't worship other gods that exist. He says, Lo tasuru ki acharei hatohu. What is tohu? Tohu is emptiness. There's nothing there. There's nothing to it. Asher lo yo'ilu, they won't help you. V'lo yatzilu ki, why won't they help you? Not because they don't want to help you, because you got the wrong ceremony and wrong ritual, but ki tohu hema, they don't exist. They're empty. They're not. They're silly. They're nonsense. Right? So it's the people who make this argument they're just wrong. Okay, this is one of the many instances where you see it. So if you come across those of you online and those of you here, you come across this argument. So put a pin in this pasuk. All right. So you use this as a shield against the heretics. Go on.
לא יטוש אדוני את עמו בעבור שמו הגדול כי הואיל אדוני לעשות אתכם לא לעם.
So this is really dichotomous, it's contradictory, and this is contradiction that we live in. And you're going to come across this contradiction throughout your path in the prophets and in the Torah. On the one hand, we're told that if we betray God and we go down the wrong path, we're going to get destroyed, we're going to get annihilated, and we're going to get harshly punished. Everyone knows this, right? We just read that, right? But on the other hand, we're never going to get completely destroyed. And that's not because God loves us and because we're nice. The reason we're not going to get completely destroyed is because we carry the God brand. Okay, because God put we're associated with him, so there's always going to be a remnant that's going to survive, and therefore you'll be okay at the end. But the question is, how much will you suffer on the way? So we have exactly, and it's actually a blessing and a terrifying curse at the same time, most nations that suffer as much as ours did end up disappearing, and then the suffering ends because you don't exist as a separate body. You just kind of become melded in and assimilate into other nations. But we keep surviving and coming up from the ashes, and then sinning again, and then getting just like punished again. So we actually carry within us. So for those of you who are joining our people, just know you're joining a people with a long, long history of suffering and not learning from our mistakes. So think once and twice and three times if it's something you really want to do. And I was saying, and therefore, the prophet here is saying something that could sound comforting and beautiful, but at the same time, it's absolutely terrifying. It terrifies me the most when I'm told that we're never going to be completely wiped out, because that also means that this cycle is going to happen over and over again.
We'll come to the brink of
We come to the brink of destruction, we get revived, and then we come to the brink of destruction again. This has happened to us over and over, and the only way to get out of it is to learn from our mistakes. Yes.
So does it imply that it's better to be gone than to suffer this?
So I don't know what's better, because for some people, when you're suffering, sometimes people in great distress say, I wish I wasn't around, right? They have all these, they sometimes use crazy talk and so on. However, life is good, right? The living in this world is great, and for some of us, and the more you live an aware and sentient life, the more aware you are of your surroundings, of the world, of God, of nature, of the complexity of life, the more rich your inner world is, and that's what's important. So I'm not implying that it's better to not exist. I'm just painting to you in bright colors the terror of the promise, of the divine promise of our eternal survival. That survival brings with it this terrifying reality that it's never really over for us. And that's just nothing else to add. That's what it means.
say more of the part of this covenant that we have with God is that we're not going to be left to the natural order of the world. So if another nation, behaves badly, their end will come, right?
They make mistakes, certain
Yeah.
mistakes, they stop existing as a people.
God says, "V'samti fanai," the same way that I give you hashgacha peratit, right? Hashgacha peratit means if you do bad, I'm going to make sure. Al ken efkod alechem et kol avonotechem. I'm going to make sure you pay for your mistakes.
And the paying
And I'm going to
never,
bring you to the brink.
always to the brink, but never completely, never over the edge. So I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer and to bring all this like terrifying implications home, but the Tanakh could be very harsh, and it's something that we need to contemplate if we want to succeed this time around.
גם אנוכי חנינני מחתו אדוני מחדול להתפלל בעדכם והוריתי אתכם בדרך הטובה והישרה.
And over here again, comforting. It's always like slapping you and comforting you, right? And I myself, God forbid, I should betray my duties. I'll always pray for you, and I'm always going to love you, and I'm always going to guide you in the right path. I'm always here for you as long as I'm alive, right? Regardless of all these things. And don't take my judgment of you as personal hatred, God forbid, or as anger, or as me abandoning you. I'm always here for you. That's what he's saying. It's quite beautiful.
The dual position of Moshe, where he comes down to the people and yells at them, and he goes up to God and says, have mercy on us.
Yeah.
He said, להתפלל בעדכם, and pray for you. והוריתי אתכם, and I tell you, you're like going back down the wrong way.
Right.
הכירו את אדוני, ועבדתם אותו באמת בכל לבבכם, כי ראו את אשר הגדיל עמכם.
The finish?
ואם הרע תראו גם אתם, גם מלככם תיספו.
So he finishes this chapter by saying, again, he repeats the theme of worshiping God with all your heart, sincerity. He mentioned this a few times already. So it's also a very fine thing. Like sincerity is not something that can be easily judged. It's not can easily measured. A person who closes his eyes and he looks all sincere isn't always someone who's sincere. It's something that's like felt in the heart. It's something that it's not something that can be institutionally uh, 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 proven. Like, it's like, oh, these are the sincere people and these are the unsincere people. There's no kippah you can wear or jacket you can put on or clothing of the sincere. The sincere exists in all colors, in all shapes, genders, ages. And the insincere could be very surprising, can also show up in all uh, clothing styles and so on. But he keeps on going, he keeps on repeating that theme of like sincere heart, because that's something very internal. And if you do that, you will always succeed. And if not, you and your king will all die. Like your king there's no difference in you and the king. Again, expressing his derision for the human tendency to idolize individuals and see them as these charismatic leaders who will take them out of their own troubles. He does not believe in that. He didn't act that way himself. He acted as a moral compass, and this is how he ends this is his last speech to the people. It's not his last move, his last activity. We're going to see next week that Shmuel was actually involved. Seems to be that he was involved in planning the revolt against the Plishtim, on a just like writing the plan for it. We're going to see that soon, but that's going to be for next week. So, Baruch Adonai L'olam, Amen v'Amen.